Right, so before I even get this video started, I just want you guys to listen to one thing. Listen to this, coming from there. You hear that rattling sound? That's gonna be the main focus of this video today. This is where it all started. Right, so I don't know if the camera picked it up, but if it did you hear that coming from there? That is the torque tube couplers completely gone to hell. So what that means pretty much in this car is I gotta take the transmission, I gotta take the differential out, and the whole torque tube. The drive shaft in a C5 is not just a drive shaft where, you know, you could just simply unscrew it and take it off. It's inside what's called a torque tube, and a torque tube is pretty much, well, you guessed it, it's a tube which connects the bell housing where the clutch is to the back where the transmission is, because the transmission is in the back of the car. And what that does is it stiffens up the whole drivetrain. But the downside is, if you have to do anything with the drive shaft or transmission or anything of the sort, or the clutch, you got to take everything off as one assembly with the rear cradle out. So now, before I explain to you guys how this one, what started with one $15 part now cost me about $5,000 or $6,000, I'm just gonna go get the car washed because it's really dirty, and then we're gonna have a seat. I'm gonna explain to you everything that happened, everything that led up to it, and I'll show you some of the stuff that I bought for the car already. Right, so I am at the self-service wash. I'm gonna wash the car, but before I do that, I want to show you guys one real quick thing, because I'm gonna wash it off and that's what you guys got to see. Okay, so now that we're here, I just want to show you guys one thing. I'm gonna shine the light over here. You see all this little dirty fluid over here? That, my friends, that is all oil. Now I'm gonna wash it off since I'm here, and I'm going to explain to you guys what the cause of this is, and that's the $15 part that went wrong, that broke, so that I need to get replaced. So before I tell you guys everything, I'm just gonna go ahead and wash the car. Okay, I think it's pretty safe to say she looks a lot better. And yes, don't worry, I cleaned the other side of the car. I just recorded this side. And if you're wondering where all the foam came from, yes, I used a foam brush because I'm planning on wrapping the car anyway, because it looks like complete garbage, the paint. Take a look at it. You got water spots that are already under the clear coat. There's more water spots here. This is the result of a hit and run. I parked my car on the street for 10 minutes. I come back and this is what I saw. I got a new bumper already hidden away. There's more chips here. Somebody probably bumped me over here when they were parking as well. Got some scratches over here. Scratches all over the car. The front has a bunch of rock chips. There's more white than black on this bumper, almost, you could say. So yeah, I don't really care about how this paint looks anymore, because I'm going to be wrapping the car anyway. But since the car is now washed and it's like 60 degrees outside, I can take the top off for the way home. And there we go. It's only like a 3-4 minute drive to my house, but hey, it's the beginning of March and I can take the top off in New York. I don't get that often, especially in March. So I'm gonna drive this thing home, I'm gonna park it, and I'm gonna explain to you guys, I'm gonna show you everything, what's wrong with this car. Right, so I'm back home now and I can start explaining to you guys what happened. So it all started when I found out that my timing cover gasket started to leak, which is all that oil that you saw under the hood that I showed you earlier. So I told myself, you know what, I gotta get that replaced, but since I gotta take the timing cover off to do it, then pretty much everything is exposed in terms of like the cam, so then I have access to the cam pretty much. So I told myself, you know what, it's a lot of work to get the timing cover off. You have to pull You take the front wheels off, you take the front sway bar off, you have to pull the power steering rack out, you have to take the power steering cooler off, and you gotta break loose the ABS, and you gotta loosen up the ABS module to move it around. You gotta take the harmonic balancer pulley off, and then you can start working on getting the timing cover off. So I told myself, you know what, it's a lot of work for just the gasket. So I told myself, you know what, I guess it's time to do a cam. So I ordered a cam kit. I'm still waiting on it. I got the cam kit being made. It's a custom grind cam, but it's gonna be a cam, valve springs, push rods, lifters, retainers, seats, hardened seats, pretty much everything you can do with a cam kit. So after I ordered the cam kit, I told myself also, you know what? So since I'm gonna be getting more power, I'm gonna be putting in a cam, I want to put in a better shifter, because the shifter that I had in my car wasn't too great. It was a short shifter. It's a Hurst short throw shifter, but I never really liked it. I grind it to the 2-3 shift sometimes. So I told myself, okay, I'm gonna get an MGW, pretty much the best shifter that you can get in a C5 Corvette. And I made a video of the installation of that shifter. Actually, if you want to go check it out, I'll leave a link to the description to that video. So after installing that MGW shifter, I told myself, I said, okay, I gotta take the car out now. I gotta see how the shifter feels like. I did a bunch of pulls, you know, quick shifting also, because I wanted to get a feel for the new shifter. And from all those pulls that I did, the next day I realized that my torque tube couplers were shot. Now the torque tube pretty much in a C5 is a drive shaft, but the problem is it's not a regular drive shaft exposed somewhere underneath the car where you can just unbolt it from the clutch, unbolt it from the transmission or whatever thing. That's not how it works in a C5. See, in a C5 Corvette, the transmission is in the rear, and the problem with that is if you have the bell housing with the clutch up front and the transmission differential in the rear, they needed something which would stiffen up the whole drive shaft and the whole drivetrain, because there is a lot of, you know, a lot of movement, the transmission differential being together, the clutch being up front. So what they did is they made what's called a torque tube. Now, a torque tube is pretty much a tube in which the drive shaft sits. Now, to get the drive shaft out of that torque tube, you have to disconnect the torque tube from the bell housing of the clutch, and you pretty much have to drop the entire rear cradle of the car with the transmission on it, with the differential on it, and with that torque tube on it, with the control arms, with the shocks, everything. It's a lot of work to get that drive shaft out of the car. So I said, you know what? Since I have to do it, I have to get those couplers replaced. It's just like with the timing cover gasket. It's a lot of work for just some stupid couplers. So I said, okay, I might as well replace a bunch of stuff while I'm under there. So let me show you guys why what started with one timing cover gasket, which cost $10, now led up to this whole thing costing around $5,000. Okay, so I pretty much got almost all the parts for the entire drivetrain part in the trunk. I don't have the cam kit yet, it's still being made, but I'm gonna show you guys what all this stuff is. So the first thing I told to myself, okay, I'm upping the power, I have access to the clutch when I take the torque tube out. I got an Exity Hyper Series twin disc racing clutch. Now this clutch came strongly recommended to me by a friend of mine who is an SCCA racer, and he has a C6 Grand Sport race car, he has a Mustang race car, he built a bunch of C5 race cars, and he pretty much uses this clutch, or you know, a different X3 clutch for a different model of a car in all the cars he built, in the cars he races. And he said that he's got zero issues with the clutches, they last forever. So I'm gonna open it up, we can take a quick look at it right now. Yeah, so this clutch is pretty much the whole thing. It's got a new flywheel, I got the twin disc clutch, new pressure plate, new everything. It also comes with an alignment tool, and for those of you who don't know what you use an alignment tool for, is pretty much there is one disc inside. So pretty much you see that there are little teeth in this area here. This is where the front of the drive shaft goes in here. You got to make sure that all these teeth are aligned. So you got this alignment tool here, and you put it in there, and it's supposed to go in like that through every single piece. If it doesn't, that means some of your teeth aren't lined up, or maybe the clutch disc isn't aligned with everything else. Something is off. So whenever you do a clutch, you always got to use an alignment tool, because then later pretty much the drive shaft, which has the exact same shape pretty much, has to go in there like that. So the clutch altogether with everything that's in this box was around $2,100. Right, moving on to the next thing. I decided I'm also gonna get a remote bleeder for the clutch, because to bleed the clutch in this car, you can never really just bleed it in like 10 minutes. To bleed the clutch, you pretty much have to do half of the work as you would getting a torque tube out. So you have to, you have to jack the car up, you have to take off the mid pipe, and you have to take off the tunnel plate, and then you have access to the bleeder valve, which is on the front of the bell housing pretty much. So I said, okay, I'm getting a remote bleeder, so that way I can just run the bleeder up into the hood somewhere maybe over there, and I can just bleed the clutch from the top whenever I wanted to after each track day, and it would only take me a couple of minutes. And the next thing I said I'm gonna get is, if you've ever driven a C5, you know that C5s suffer from terrible, most people say it's wheel hop, but it's not actually a wheel hop. What it is the whole drivetrain, pretty much the transmission and differential, are jumping up and down on the transmission mount whenever it's losing traction in first gear. So just the transmission mounts in the C5s are not that great, and it could end with a broken input shaft that goes from the drive shaft into the transmission. So I decided I'm also gonna get a better transmission mount. So I got a PFAT transmission mount. Now it's not a 100% solid mount, you still got like rubber bushings here, but it will be a lot better than the stock mount, which is pretty much from left to right, it's maybe half of what this whole mount is. And I've heard nothing but good things about this mount, that it stops all that hop from happening. And if it's gonna do exactly what people say it does, I'm not gonna run the risk of breaking the input shaft of the drive shaft anymore whenever I lose traction in first gear. The next thing was, I got an ECS transmission and differential brace. What it does, now I'm not gonna unpack it because it's all in pieces really, you're not gonna be able to see it anyway, but what it does is connects the transmission and differential using 4 rods on like each corner. What it does is it stiffens up the whole thing, and in case one or the other goes bad, since they're connected, this in some way keeps the damage from spreading from one part to the other. So if the differential were to fail, it could potentially keep any damage that is happening in the differential move to the transmission. So this was another $400, so we're pretty much up to, counting shipping and everything, we're up to, let's say, 3,000 already with these parts alone. Next part. Next part is also, if you've owned a C5 or driven one, you know that the stock clutch master cylinders in these cars are complete garbage. If you probably heard stories, or if you just go on the Corvette forums, you hear a bunch of stories of the clutch just completely sticking to the floor and not coming back up after you've done some pulls or you've done some racing or something like that. It's just the clutch master cylinders are terrible in these cars. So I got a Tick Performance adjustable clutch master cylinder. Now this pretty much fixes that issue. It improves the clutch pedal feel, and it makes the shifting even better than it already is with that MGW shifter. And this little thing was another $450. So we're pretty much up already to $3,500. Next, this white box right here, that is a new tunnel plate. Now, why would I want to replace the tunnel plate? Well, the stock tunnel plate in a C5 is a 1/8 inches thick. So it just pretty much covers the torque tube. There's no dirt getting in there. That's pretty much it. This one is a 1/4 inch thick, and it's got a heat shield on the inside of it. So pretty much and it's got a heat shield. So pretty much what it does is it keeps the heat from the exhaust coming into the car through the tunnel right there. And since it's thicker, it stiffens up the whole chassis of the car, which is what I want on the track. That tunnel plate was another 350 bucks, and I really want to see if there's any difference in the feel of the chassis stiffness. A lot of people say there is. It feels a lot better, so I cannot wait to see that. And finally, in there, it's not oil, it's most of the torque tube parts. Some I'm still waiting for. It's all special order parts, so like each part arrives separately, which is kind of stupid, but right. So that's pretty much going to be the end of this video. There's nothing really else I can do at this point besides wait for the rest of the torque tube parts to show up and fix the darn thing. Now I won't be able to get the cam kit done until I do the torque tube, because after the cam kit you got to put the car in the dyno, you got to tune it, see how much power it makes. I do not want to put the car in a dyno with a torque tube that is falling apart. So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and stay tuned for a lot more videos of all the changes coming to this car. I'm going to end the video here. I hope you enjoyed it. See you guys.